probably should be coming back up. Go back here. Yes. Okay, let's see. It should come back up in just a second. All right, here we go. We are on.
Hey, Marsha, we're back live.
Different stream. We're still in our learning period here, boys and girls, so we're working out the kinks. All the Ray Davies and the Dave Davies, we're working out all those kinks. But hey, you're right here in time for the sermon. Yay, so lucky y'all. And our sermon this morning is called Power versus Force, Being Peacemakers in a World of War. Not timely at all, unfortunately. There's a Zen Buddhist story about a village that was warned that a vicious warlord and his soldiers were coming to destroy the town. And so they all fled because, they're wise people like that. Everybody left except this one old monk. And he stayed in his temple and meditated. And when the warlord came in and saw him, he drew his sword and he pointed it at the monk's heart and said angrily, "Do you know that I could run you through without batting an eye?" And the old monk looked up calmly and replied, "And do you know that I can be run through without batting an eye?" And the warlord bowed before the presence of this old monk and left. So who do you think is the most powerful person in this story? I think we recognize almost immediately that the person who holds the power in this story is the monk and not that warrior. Why? Well, because on a higher level within ourselves, we recognize that this parable is about power versus force. So the only thing that the warrior understands is force. He and his army have forced their way through the countryside, killing people, burning villages, taking whatever they want. Force is something that works very well in this material world because what powers it is fear. We comply with force because we fear for our safety. We fear for the safety of these bodies, of our material world. We fear for the safety of family and friends and neighbors, those we consider innocent bystanders. And fear is one of the most powerful motivators in this material world. The monk, though, he doesn't really traffic in the material world much. I mean, he's got his needs. He has to eat. He has to find housing and clothing. But his life is not as connected to the material world as those outside of the temple. Because the monk's world is built on love and awareness that there's more going on than this material world. But the love that the monk has built his life on isn't this fickle love that the world understands, but the love that is the only real thing, the only real power in this universe. It is this love that understands that our bodies are not who we truly are. Instead, they're just these suits that we walk around in this material world. Death is not final. It's just like taking off your shoes at the end of the day. The reality of each of us is that we are infinite consciousness, having these bodily, material experiences. According to the Buddhists, the Hindus, and other traditions, even like A Course in Miracles, they all say this material world is a classroom. And many traditions say we come here over and over and over again in new forms to learn the lessons that we need so we can achieve nirvana or enlightenment. And A Course tells us that the only lesson that we're here to really learn in this world is how to remove fear, which creates barriers to our understanding that love is the only thing that's real. So the best teacher in this world is that of contrast. The Zen story of the monk and the warrior provide that contrast, as does Palm Sunday from the Christian tradition. In a couple of weeks, Christians will celebrate the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem for the Passover celebration. Just days before the force of this material world, in the form of the Roman government, will put him to death by crucifixion. The Christian scriptures say that 3 times fast. They say that Jesus' entry into Jerusalem was a simple affair. He rode into town on a borrowed donkey as a throng cheered him and threw down their garments as a poor man's red carpet. And over on the other side of town, though, it's a completely different scene. The Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, is coming to town to make sure the Jews don't try anything funny, like an insurrection during the holy days. But Pilate's entry into Jerusalem was a grand affair. He rides in on his trusty steed, surrounded by the pageantry and the glory that is reserved only for the rich and powerful in this world. But Jesus' entry into Jerusalem was a show of power, while Pilate's was a show of force. A good modern example, and you guys are going to get tired of me talking about the monks, but they are so good right now. They are a fine example of this contrast. Walking 2,300 miles from their temple in Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C., and when they started, they were just this oddity. There wasn't a lot of press coverage out there when they first started walking. But as their journey continued, people in the press and the people online, they started to take notice. The crowds flocked to them. The further they went, the crowds just grew exponentially. And, there were 1,000 people in Leesville when we saw them we had to park half a mile away. Everything. The only thing these guys were doing was walking. And at every stop, they gave the same talk to all the people who showed up when they stopped for a rest. But it's clear that people understood the depth and the power of these monks. Something deep within us recognized that power because they were driven not by a spirit of fear, but by a spirit of love and compassion. So contrast that with the shows of force going on around this nation at the time that the monks walked. They were walking between October 2025 and last month. And during that period of time, those who are the power of force, the Trump administration, in that time, deployed the National Guard in Democratic-led cities to crack down on crime and protesters. ICE agents were deployed in many cities and states, including Minnesota, where they terrorized people, rounded up immigrants, arrested U.S. citizens, killed 2 of them, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. That happened in January. The Defense Department was destroying boats in the waters of the Caribbean, deliberately killing those on board simply because they suspected the boats were carrying drugs. The administration's use of force to create an environment of fear was something you could not escape knowing about. In that period of time, you still can't escape it. But you had the monks walking this whole time. And which one captured your heart? But I think the biggest irony to come out of the monks' walk was that they ultimately joined their power with this world's force, law enforcement. When they began their walk, they weren't being escorted by local sheriff's deputies or police departments. It was only when their pilot car was in an accident and one monk was seriously injured that authorities decided that the monks needed their help to make their journey safely. And I think that's the best contrast of it all. The sight of the world's icons of fearful force, the police, escorting the peaceful, loving, and silently walking monks. Just like the warrior in the Zen parable, even our modern day police force cannot deny the gentle power of those monks. What is it, you may wonder, that gives these monks such gentle and loving power in a world enamored with the perceived power of force? Well, what we're seeing is the result of years of practicing loving kindness meditation and following the precepts of Buddhism that emphasizes ethical speech and action, intention, livelihood, and understanding, concentration, and mindfulness. These monks reject what the Buddha called the three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion by cultivating their respective contrasting antidotes of generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. Buddhist practice teaches us how to recognize the poisons when they're arising and learning through meditation and study to let them go. And as the monks themselves emphasized during their walk, you don't have to be a Buddhist to cultivate this kind of true power. You only have to be dedicated to learning how to recognize those three poisons of greed and hatred and delusion when they arise in your own mind, and find practices that help you cultivate generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. Those monks know that if each of us becomes dedicated to living mindfully in an unconscious and violent world, we can become peacemakers in this warring world. On their website, the monks wrote about their walk. They wrote this: "This is our contribution, not to force peace on the world, but to help nurture it, one awakened heart at a time. Not the walk of peace alone can do this, but all of us together," they write. Everyone who has been walking with us in spirit, everyone who feels something stir within them when they encounter this journey, everyone who decides that cultivating peace within themselves matters. And this, my friends, it's an invitation for us to take up our own walk for peace. And we don't have to walk 2,300 literal miles, but we do have to take that arduous inner journey that requires us to walk away from our greed and hatred and fearful delusions to the destination of generosity and loving kindness and wisdom. The walk, it took a physical toll on those monks. And make no mistake, our spiritual journey from fear to love can take a mental, spiritual, and even a physical toll on us if we're not willing to do that hard work. There's no spiritual bypass for any of us who really want to be peacemakers in this world. I can understand, though, if taking this kind of walk from fear to love is frightening, but as Ashanaya Swami, a disciple of Yogananda, says, we're needed right now. But not in a dramatic way, she says. The real power is the power of consciousness and the power of thought. The material has force, but the spiritual has power because we are the future. Our job is simple, she says. We need to understand the real purpose of our lives. We have to develop the humility to understand who we really are and what the next step is, and be conscientious in moving in that direction. So who we really are, friends, is eternal love jammed into a human suit. And it gets uncomfortable in here. It's easy to rage at the politicians and others that we blame for what we see as wrong with the world. But as Asha says, that's not going to bring us a peaceful world. She says, do we really want a world in which people are angry and try to force each other to act like we want them to? She says it doesn't really matter because the vibration that we're putting out is not the vibration we're trying to create. And this, I think, is the key to all of it. We must be emitting, we must be embodying the vibration that we want to create in this world. And this is why the monks are so powerful. Their intent and their vibration are one in the same. They are modeling a world of loving kindness and mindfulness with every step. Do they sometimes get mad and feel despair over the state of the world? I'm sure they do, because they are human beings. But they've done that difficult inner work of inoculating themselves against those three poisons of greed and hatred and delusion. They have practices that help keep their vibrations high so they can stay on track and continue to walk away from fear toward love. And that doesn't mean we cover up our feelings. We can't go from despair to loving kindness in an afternoon. That's called spiritual bypass. If you just go, la, 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 everything's great, and the world is on fire. No. This is a long journey, and it must be a daily practice. If you are in a vibration of fear or anger or despair in this moment, the best you can do is search for the next available higher vibration, such as courage or acceptance. Achieve over time those higher vibrations of love and joy and peace. This also does not mean that we retreat to our meditation cushion and shut out the world. Even Jesus knew that there are times and places that we have to act in ways that those who use force can understand. Jesus went into the temple. He turned over the tables of the money changers because he knew those in power at the time would understand that kind of action. But he did it in a spirit of compassion because he knew that what they were doing, what the money changers, what the Pharisees, what they all were doing was a betrayal to who they truly are. Everyone we see as wrongdoers, they too are infinite spirits created by love. Those protesting ICE in Minnesota, they're carrying on this tradition of Jesus. They stand their ground in ways that those who rely on force can understand. They stand as witnesses for those taken by ICE. They care for their neighbors. They bring food to those who are afraid to leave their homes. They put their lives on the line for each other, and they do it not in a spirit of fear or hatred, but in a spirit of courage and love. And if we ever wonder what we might do if we were ever confronted by those who use force to create fear in this world, don't think we need to look much further than Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Neither of them knew the fate that awaited them on the day that they died. But when their time came, both of them were acting from a power of love and not fear. Alex Preddy died while trying to help another protester who had just been shoved to the ground and pepper sprayed. Renee Good looked in the eyes of her killer and said, "I'm not mad at you, bro." Which to my ears has the echo of Jesus saying, "Forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing." Just like the monk in the Zen story, Preddy and Good stood in their power. And we may not know what we will do if we are ever confronted with force. But if we begin right now to walk that inner path from fear to love, we will be prepared to meet the moment. As those walking monks remind us, one step becomes two. Two becomes 1,000. 1,000 become countless. And slowly, gently, persistently, not through grand gestures, but through 10,000 small acts of love, we can help make the world more peaceful. Oh, yeah. Breathe deeply. That's a lot. And for those on the YouTube, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up because we're going to have a little discussion here before we close things out. And if you want to get in on the discussion, you're always welcome to join us here at Clayton Memorial in Newberry, South Carolina. And we will see you online the first Sunday of April. That is the next time we will be online. So thank you so much for joining us. All right.